Here's something your brain is doing right now. As you watch this, it's deciding whether to remember it or not, and the odds are not in your favor. Your brain's primary job isn't to remember, it's to forget. Aggressively, efficiently, relentlessly, almost everything you encounter gets filtered out, every day by design. And it decides what stays based on one question. Was this needed to deal with something real? Not was this interesting, not was this highlighted in 3 colors, not was this watched 5 times. Needed, used, relevant to an actual problem. Which means the entire strategy most of us use for learning, absorb first and hope it sticks, is working directly against how the system operates. We've all been there. I spent 5 hours on a book about productivity and felt great about myself, smart, curious, growing. And then someone asked me to explain what the book was about, and all I could say was, it was really interesting. I couldn't reconstruct it, I couldn't use it, it just disappeared somewhere. We treat our brains like warehouses. We stack the boxes in, close the door, and come back when we need something. Except when we come back, the lights are off, the boxes are unlabeled, and you're standing there in the dark wondering what happened. Nothing happened, and that's exactly the problem. You might have heard about Richard Feynman, a physicist, Nobel laureate, and one of the most original scientific minds of the 20th century. His father had a rule. Whenever young Richard learned something at school, he had to come back home and explain it. Not just summarize it, explain it in plain language, to his father who was not a scientist. If Richard couldn't do that, his father would say, "You don't know it yet, go back and figure it out." That relentless pressure to reconstruct what he'd learned in his own words for a real human being sitting in front of him laid the foundation of how Feynman thought. He couldn't hide behind fancy words, he couldn't borrow the expert's explanation. He had to own it. He later turned this into a method, but the point wasn't the technique. The point was the philosophy underneath it. You don't understand something until you can make it simple without making it wrong. So if your brain tags information based on survival value, not effort, your leverage isn't in how you consume. It's in reducing the distance between receiving information and doing something with it. That gap between hearing an idea and using it is where retention goes to die. Every time that gap is long, your brain marks it as ambient noise. Every time that gap is short, it marks it as relevant to my survival. That's the whole game. Think about the last time you were trying to figure something out under real pressure. You really needed it. You were Googling it at midnight, reading Reddit threads at 1 AM, cross-referencing sources, and you remember that information. Because your brain saw it like trying to outrun a tiger, like your life depended on it. Most of our learning has no predator, no stakes, no target, it's just information falling into emptiness. So how can we actually close that gap? First, create the problem before you start. Before you open the book, before you hit play, know exactly the specific thing you are trying to solve. Not I want to learn about electromagnetism. Instead, I need to figure out why the light turns on when I flip the switch. The brain treats a life problem like a target. It stops filtering and starts grabbing and memorizing. Second, generate before you receive. Try to answer the question before you see the material, even badly, especially badly. Take a wild guess, even completely wrong. The act of trying to explain prepares your brain to recognize what really matters when the real answer arrives. Wrong guesses are actually better anchors than blank slates. Third, reconstruct immediately under pressure. Right after you finish something, close the book, give yourself 2 minutes to write down or say out loud what you just learned. In your own words, as if you're explaining it to a kid. What you can't reconstruct, your brain didn't actually process, not yet. And fourth, use it publicly as fast as possible. Explain it to someone, write a short post, make a short video, teach it badly to some friends or colleagues. The social stakes, however small, stimulate survival pressure. And survival pressure is one signal your brain never ignores. So the fastest way to learn is to stop trying to be a student and start being a creator. Every time you read something interesting and don't do something with it, in the next hour you are teaching your brain that that information is just noise. You're training yourself to forget. Information is cheap, insight is expensive, and you pay for it with your attention, the friction, and the willingness to be confused long enough for understanding to become real.